Hello my friends, I'm Tyler, and this is Game Life. So I've been taking a course on Udemy that's about Unity, 3D, and making games with it. I've gotten to a part where they are talking about onion layer design. What is onion layer design? Basically, it's a way of looking at what is the most important core piece of gameplay, and then what's the second most important, what's the third most important, and then we would go and implement them in that order. So while I was doing that, I kind of developed a generalization for core gameplay. I was looking at the example they gave, I figured out what was most important, and then I kind of just generalized it. I saw that it would be easy to. So I wanted to take a look at each of those different modules and study them. But I thought the best way to do that would just to be to look at a game, a random game, use it as a case study. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be doing a case study of HEXOLOGIC by mythicowl. Now, this is just the first game I came across. I opened up Congregate, and it was just right there, so I just picked it. I didn't want to do a game I've done before, or one that was weird or huge. Just wanted to do a simple game, and Congregate is usually pretty good for those. So first, I want to go over what each of those things are. The first one is action. So it's something to do and ways to do it. In the example in the Unity course, we have a spaceship and we need to move it around. That would be something to do and ways to do it. We can move around, and the ways to do it are with the keys. Then you have level. So level is restrictions and constraint. These restrictions are supposed to apply directly to the actions that you can take. So in a classical level, you might have walls, and that would impede your movement. It constrains how you move. Now, you could have a whole level set up with a whole bunch of walls and floors and ceilings, and you can move about it, and that's fine and dandy, but there's nothing really to do. So what you need next is a goal. Now, a goal is a purpose or terms of completion. It's somewhere that you know you need to go. So an end to the level, a doorway to the next level. You need to know what it is that you need to complete. Now, next you need to have stimuli, because as you go and complete your goals, you're going to get good at it. And you need to contrast the improvement and track your mastery and skill development. And the way you do this is with a stimulus. So this could possibly be like a timer. That would be a negative stimuli. You would see that ticking down. But as you got better, you'd be able to beat the level with more time on the clock. Or it could be a score. Perhaps the better you perform in the game, the higher your score is. So you're still just doing the same thing. You're doing actions in a level and reaching a goal. But if you have a better score, that means you did it better. Other stimuli could be musical cues or sound effects. Perhaps some flashy lights when you fill a bar. Now, once you do this for a while, you're going to get awfully good. So what needs to happen next is alterations and extensions, and this would be a mode. So a mode, there can be a few different things for a mode. You could have a power-up, you could have achievements, and you could have just whole different game modes. Those are going to affect your actions and the level and the goal. So if you have achievements, that's going to affect what your goal is. It kind of gives you something else to aim at. That's not necessarily the whole point of the game. If you have game modes, that's going to allow you to have different levels. So you'll be able to play with the restrictions and constraints that you have while keeping the same general base. And then you'll have power-ups, which would affect your actions. It gives you new things to do. So now we are going to go and take a look at our game, HEXOLOGIC. And we're going to try to see if we can find those things inside of that game. So here's the game. And the first thing that starts you off with is a tutorial. Now the tutorial pops up some things, and it gives you a little finger pointing at this one. I would say that that's kind of a goal. And goals can be implicit or explicit. And this is pretty much an explicit goal. It's showing me what to do. So it gives me something that I need to do. So I'm going to click right there, and as soon as I do that, it also gives me an action. I know now that I can affect tiles by clicking on them. And if you mess around, you'll figure out, it doesn't really directly tell you this explicitly, but if you click this, it kind of shows you which ones are in a group. So I have two actions so far in this game. I can click on a tile and affect it by increasing its number, it looks like, or I could click on the number over here and it'll show me which tiles are in its group. So I have the explicit goal of actually clicking on these, because that's what it's telling me to do. But then up here I have the implicit goal of that I need to make this side equal to that side. So now what else do I do? Okay, so now I know I can click on them multiple times. Try clicking on it again, and there we go. So that looks like what success is. So now I have action and a goal. So I have an action, and I have a goal. And I just kind of saw that I had a level, but let's look at the next one, and then we'll see how that actually plays out. So I'm going to go up to level 3. And now this is a level. It's a constraint. Before we just had one thing that we needed to make equal, but now it kind of gives us we need to make this filled up, and we need to make this filled up. So that gives us some constraints, some restrictions on what we can do. I could just go and click a whole bunch of things, but if I want to reach the goal, which is to make this group have how many it needs and make this group have how many it needs, then I need to play by its constraints. That means we do have a level, and we have plenty of them. As we just saw, I just skipped ahead to level 3, and there's a whole bunch. Now, stimuli is going to be a little bit different. When we do complete a level, it does give us a little jingle. The other thing that could be seen as stimuli would be a timer. That would be a negative stimuli, something to get better at, or a score. This game doesn't really have that. Instead, what it does is it makes you get better at it, and you kind of have to gauge your own progress. As you get better at this, you will be able to do more complex ones and maybe even do earlier ones with less trouble. So the stimulus in this game isn't quite as obvious other than just beating a level. So we go and we play around with a level. We're not good at it yet because we've just started. We want to get this one filled up, so I know I can get 2 in there. Okay, that fills that one up, and that should fill this one up. Okay, so now we learn a rule. Another part of the restrictions of the levels is that I guess this one needs to be filled up too. So that one will need to be 1 to fill up these, and then that one can go up to 3, and then there we go. We beat the level. Up here we have this little dude, and we have 2 other things. This is green, and he's usually a more friendly color, and then we see up here he's a baby, and we have red, he's on fire. What that is telling us is that we have different modes. What those 2 are, I didn't explore them inside of the game, but it is 2 separate modes, 2 different ways to play, 2 different ways the levels can be. In easy mode, I believe it gives you some extra hints, and in hard mode, it doesn't give you hints. So there are some alterations and extensions. As you get better, you can switch modes, and that kind of gives you something new to master. That's the whole point, is we have something to do and a reason to do it. We get good at that, and then we want to do something else and get good at that and kind of build on top of what we did at first. So I'm going to pick level 5, and I'm going to solve this. I don't have it memorized, so let's see. This one needs, let's do 2 in each, and then this one needs 3. That's too much for the 3 though, so let's go down to 1, 2. That fills up the 3. If I switch this to 3, this to 2, and that to 1, that fills, okay, yeah, it looks like it filled them up. It doesn't really give you a chance to look at it and see before it just lets you move on to the next one, but there we go. All right, so I've practiced a little bit. I've got to 5 and 6. Now I'm going to get to 7. In my notes, this is where I wrote down that I had a realization. Earlier, we discovered the restriction that each tile had to have at least 1. That means that when we first start out, without even looking at any of the numbers, we could just click 1 in each, because we know that's one of the rules of the levels, is each tile needs a value of 1. We discovered that through play, and that lets us do better on each level. Already, you can see right here, because I put 1 in each because that's just what it needs, I've solved this group already. These both have to be 1. It can't be any more. If this was any more, then it would be too much for this group, and it can't be any less like that because this one needs at least 1. So because each one needs at least 1, this 2 group is complete, and that makes this problem a lot easier. We can see it kind of cascades down. Since this one has to be a 1, this one has to be a 3 so that this 4 group is complete. So to fill up this one, now we just have to fill up that. Since that's a 1, that's filled up as high as it can go. 3 is the highest number. That one has to be a 2 so that this could fill up. And since that has to be a 3, this has to be a 2 so that that can fill up. And then we're done. When I got to this point, I had gotten better at the game. I realized something about it to make it easier for me. So I don't have this written down on our whiteboard, but we are building our skill, and that's just through gameplay. That's natural. Now let's go ahead on to number 11. I'll just pick that one randomly. Now, just testing our theory, we have to plug in 1 to all of them. Just hopping into this level, we know that these 2 are complete. That's just what these are. So we reduced our whole problem down quite a lot. Now I played all the way up until level 15, and then you can see that it switches to level 16. Now when we go into here, all of a sudden we see something different. All right, something new. It's a new mode, which lets the level designer build new levels and lets us practice with it, lets us get better at it. So this one's going to be pretty easy, since this is 1, 2, 3, 4, which is more than we've seen before, so that's a little bit different too. This one has to be a 1, so that these are all 5. And then since this has to be 1, this has to be a 3, so that that 4 can be filled. We were able to use our previous knowledge and previous skill in this new mode. And that's what's important about modes, is they have to build upon the core gameplay. If the mode was completely different, if all of a sudden it threw me into a whole nother type of puzzle game, it probably wouldn't have been fun. It would have kind of broke my immersion. But since it was related, I was able to use the skill that I've just developed through the first 15 levels onto this next level, and I know where to go. I kind of know what to do. It makes it fun because I had just gotten to the point where it was starting to get boring, and then it gave me something new to chew on for a while. So we go on to, let's say, level 18, and we see there's 2 tiles here that are permanent. This one has even more than we've seen before. The mode is just the fact that there are permanent tiles that can't be changed. The mode is used to improve the levels and alter the level design. It can be used in multiple places, it can be used in different ways, and it can be used to make more challenging levels. But we're going to get good at this too eventually. So we know this one's a 6, that means that has to be 2, because these are the only 2 in this group. Since that's a 2, that has to be a 2. Since this is 4, there's only 1 spot left, so that has to be a 1, which makes that have to be a 3. So it's still more challenging because it's something new, but we're going to get good at it, and we're going to get good at it probably quicker than we did at the main game. It depends on how different the mode is, how much more complex the mode is. The less complex, the more easy it's going to be to understand and to master, and the more complex, the harder it's going to be to understand from our previous understanding and master. Now notice the way I said the level designer can use the mode to make new levels, such as on level 24, there's 1 and there's 2, while on the first introduction to this, there was only 1. Let's try to see if we can find another one. Okay, on level 26, there's 4 of them. So this is what I would call a dynamic mode. It can change the gameplay in a varying degree, but in the same way. As many of these unchangeable tiles can be added to a level. That's different than a static mode. So static mode would just be if there was a timer on each level. All of a sudden now there's only 60 seconds to solve it. And that's the same for every level. That would be a static mode. Dynamic modes, they can change and be used in different degrees, and sometimes to different effects too, even though they're the same mechanic. So I'm going to hop back a little bit to level hard 21. This is where I had a further realization of mastery. So it's important for a player to realize they're getting good at it in some way. Sometimes it's where they have the aha moment. Oh, now I finally understand why this is happening, how I'm doing this. Perhaps it's even a message to the player, hey, you achieved that in record time, here's a gold medal. The first trick I found was that every single tile had to have 1. But then the second trick I found, this further realization of mastery, was this group of 5 right here. The only way this could be completed is if one of these was a 3 and one of them was a 2. Since a 3 has a 2 within it, I know that these are both 2, at least, and one of them is a 3. That lets me get a little bit further. It kind of gives me a little bit more of an edge. It can help solve some problems. Like it helps solve this 3. This 3, there's a 1 right there because there has to be, and there's a 2 right there because it has to be. Now since this has to be a 2, because it's completing this 3, that means this one has to have the 3 little nodes. That completes all 3 of these right then and there. So I realize that I'm getting better at it. I'm able to solve these a lot quicker. This is a tool that I've used in pretty much every subsequent level to complete it. Then I also kind of realized the math behind the tiles. So let's say this group, there's a group of 2. the lowest value they can have is 2, and the highest value they can have is 6, which is the group count times 3, since each one of them have 3. Now that's different when there's a unchangeable tile, but that is part of the mode, and that adds some complexity. That's a good thing. So since this is anywhere between 2 and 6, if it's a 5, then I know that all of them are going to be filled up all the way except for 1. If I have a group of 3 and we have a 9 right here, that means they have to be filled up each 3 to complete the 9. If it's an 8, then I know that 2 of them are going to be filled up to 3 and one of them is going to be filled up to 2. It's just the way it has to happen. That helped me out too, just recognizing the math behind it. Now let's take another look. We have over on this side 3 little bonuses. These levels opened up when I got to level 30. When I got to level 30 and beat it, it changes into new rule sets, as can be expected every 15 levels. But we also got this, and we also got it on the previous 15 levels as well. This is a good stimuli. This is a treasure that opened. They popped out of this dude's mouth. They're bonus challenge levels. When we got these, the game was telling us, you did really well. You've mastered the concept of these levels in this mode. Here's some bonus levels to have some fun with, but you did well. That's a good stimuli. So this definitely gets a check. All right, let's take a look at 30 plus. It's going to introduce us to a new mode. Now we have a ring in these tiles. So we click it, we figure out something to do. Okay, that's a new constraint. It's changing the way the levels work. Now it's kind of a new action. It's making us click more than one at once, but since it's a constraint, I'd say it's more of a change to the level, and that's how this mode is working. So we can complete this level. There we go. Awesome. New modes are really cool. Let's look at 37. Okay, so these rings all fit together, and then these rings all fit together. So this mode is extremely dynamic. There can be a lot of different ways levels can be set up like this. Now, if we look at level 39, something interesting is going to take place. Here we have the mode that we've just encountered, plus the previous mode that we encountered of the unchanging tiles. The level designer was able to mix these 2 modes together to kind of create a third mode for free. And that's a really powerful tool because it cuts down on the time that has to be spent making new mechanics and testing that out, and it just lets the level designer go crazy with all kinds of different level possibilities, and it lets the player increase their skill even further. So let's go up a little bit more. We have some more challenge levels. These definitely make use of all the different stuff set out so far. It makes you test your mastery, but it also rewards you for having done the mastery of all the levels. So we get up to level 45. That's it. I believe there's a bigger part to this game. Let's go ahead and take a look at the credits. Give credit where credit is due. HEXOLOGIC. It is a very fun game. Beautiful. I liked the music. It was fun. Way to spend the evening. And it's over on Congregate. I'm going to leave a link in the description. Thank you to all of these fine people for making a fun game that I was able to dissect and have fun seeing where they put in their effort. Let's take one last peek over at our blackboard. So they had an action, they had a level, they had a goal, they had stimuli, and they had a mode. I think that there's a lot of benefit to go through a game and try to find all these things. I wrote a lot of this stuff down. I have quite a few pages. That's the difference between having fun and playing a game and procrastinating, and actually studying a game and having fun while you're doing it. I'm going to probably try to do a few more of these case studies. I had a lot of fun doing this. I don't know if the next one I do is going to match up perfectly like HEXOLOGIC. It just seemed to fall into my lap, how well it was designed and how I was able to see that shine through. But, you know, sometimes you pick a game that's harder to see it or doesn't have it, and it's important to see too. Sometimes it just doesn't feel right to a player, but if you're aspiring to design, you kind of need to be able to sense that to a greater degree and with a different filter. So thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.